Well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to another episode of Sci-Fails. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be a bit of an oddball episode, if I'm being frank about it. One of my, I don't say my passions, but like alongside being like into cryptozoology and ufology and just the 4T and stuff, I was also into what they call pre-Columbian contact in North America, right? Or in the Americas, where allegedly other cultures and societies met and interacted with and influenced the native populations in North America and South America before the arrival of Columbus. That's basically the long and short of it. Obviously, this is true. This did happen. We had the Vikings, of Greenland, came here and into North America and had lumber camps and a little a lumber settlement trade post where they unfortunately got into skirmishes with the natives and ended up abandoning them. But for a while they were there. Other contact, of course, that we know about when we'll get to later. For the Sasquatch baby, I don't know. I don't know when we're going to do that party. But one that was always kind of interesting was this idea that the Olmecs, if you know who the Olmecs are, they had the big round stone heads. We're going to look at a million pictures of them today, so don't worry about that. They were the predecessors to all these Mesoamerican civilizations, right? These high-tech civilizations that followed. They were like the first, the predecessor to all this style of architecture, right? So the theory goes that because these heads have certain features that they're obviously of African ancestry. And we're going to look at some of this and see what we can break down and see if this theory actually holds up. There's a few different things we're going to cover. This one's pretty short, though, but we're going to get through this one first.
Today, we're taking a closer look at one of the most fascinating theories in the realm of archaeology and anthropology: the possibility that the Olmec civilization, often considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica, may have origins that trace back to ancient African civilizations. The Olmec civilization, flourishing from around 1400 to 400 BCE in what is now Mexico, has long been a subject of intrigue and mystery. Known for their colossal head sculptures and advanced societal structures, the Olmecs have puzzled historians and archaeologists alike. The Olmec civilization is often considered the mother culture of later Central American civilizations like the Maya and Aztecs.
True.
Notable for their monumental architecture and sophisticated art, the Olmecs inhabited the tropical lowlands of what is now southern Mexico, particularly in the present-day states of Veracruz and Tabasco. One of the most iconic legacies of the Olmec civilization is the colossal
now,
stone.
To be clear, when we
look
at this map they got here, this is not Veracruz and Tabasco. Veracruz and Tabasco is down here on the coast. This bright area right here is this Mexico City, and all these heavily populated valleys to the south and east of Mexico City.
One of the most iconic legacies of the Olmec civilization is the colossal stone heads, believed to be portraits of rulers, carved from basalt and ranging in height up to 3.4 meters. These heads are characterized by their distinctive facial features, including flat faces and full lips, often wearing helmet-like headgear. The craftsmanship involved in creating these massive sculptures, some of which were transported over 80 kilometers, underscores the Olmecs' advanced abilities and the importance of these figures in their society. The Olmecs also made significant contributions to Mesoamerican religion and mythology, venerating natural elements and animals, particularly those at the top of the food chain like jaguars and eagles. Art and sculpture were other areas where the Olmecs excelled, with materials ranging from jade and ceramics to wood. Their art often depicted powerful animals and mythical creatures, indicating a rich tapestry of religious and cultural beliefs.
Yeah, and a direct line of influence coming down through the different Mesoamerican cultures, from the Aztec to the Mayans to the Toltec. The thing about the Olmecs is they are considered, the predecessor of this style of architecture in Mexico, in in Guatemala, in that area of the world. But there are pyramids in South America, pyramids in Brazil that fairly recently been mapped with new technology that are as old as the pyramids in Egypt.
The Olmecs are also known for their smaller jade figurines and ceremonial objects, which, like the colossal heads, often found their way into ritual burials. The influence of the Olmec civilization on subsequent Mesoamerican cultures is undeniable, with their artistic styles, religious motifs, and urban planning concepts being adopted and adapted by later civilizations. The Olmec's development of ceremonial centers, pyramids, and ball courts set precedents that would shape the region's cultural landscape for millennia.
Okay.
But could these ancient people have had connections to Africa? One of the most compelling theories suggests that the Olmecs might have had African roots. This idea...
I'm going to tell you right now that all people, all humans have roots in Africa. That's where humans come from as a species. All from Africa. But did they come from Africa to Mexico directly?
Is supported by several pieces of evidence, including the distinctly African features of the colossal Olmec heads, similarities in
Are they distinctly African, though?
religious practices and symbols, and linguistic parallels between the Olmec language and ancient African languages. Let's delve into the evidence. First, the colossal heads, carved from single blocks of basalt, depict faces with broad noses, full lips, and other features that some researchers argue resemble those of African peoples. Additionally,
yes, to the producers of minstrel shows, right? Yeah, you can pull out those characteristics and stylize them. Jesus, yeah, LiDAR is the technology you were probably thinking of. Yeah, where they map the civilizations and settlements and stuff that are now under like jungle and a couple hundred years of decay.
certain Olmec artifacts and symbols show striking similarities to those found in ancient African civilizations. For example, the use of the jaguar motif in Olmec art has parallels in African leopard symbolism.
Okay, dude. Let me recap what he just said. The jaguar in Olmec art parallels the leopard in African art. Both animals are large, spotted, powerful predators that are probably, when it comes to terrestrial animals, the biggest threat to your children. Right? And so they're scary. Of any animal that's going to maul you and carry you off screaming into the jungle, it's a big cat. One of those big spotted cats, probably. The big striped cats are even worse. They don't got those in South America. That's why they don't draw parallels to the tiger. But that's a silly connection to make. Anywhere where there's big cats and people, the big cat is revered and feared.
Ivan van Sertima referenced several historical accounts, which he interpreted as suggesting that African peoples had visited the Americas before Columbus. Here are some of the examples he provided in his work. 1. Accounts of Arab travelers. Van Sertima cited the writings of Arab geographers and travelers, such as Al-Masudi, 9th-10th century, and Al-Idrisi, 12th century, who described transatlantic voyages by West African peoples. According to some of these accounts, Africans were said to travel west from the Sahara to reach unknown territories.
They were going to the Canary Islands. And, what's the other ones that are up there? It's not the Maldives, is it? No. Let me see. Canary Islands. Get that up on the map here. The Azores? Yeah. Here, let me show you guys. So you know I'm not crazy. Like, if you look, when they sailed west from Africa, these are the Canaries, right? You get these little guys up here too. And you have, it says Acors, but I swear these were called the Azores. Let me see. Maybe the Azores are different islands. No, it's the Azores. Okay. Well, whatever. Yeah. That's what I call them, the Azores. But, yeah, these are, and all of those have archaeological evidence of contact with, African cultures starting around like the 11th century. So, where were they going? They were going here. Not going past all this stuff, across the Atlantic, past Bermuda, the Bahamas, Cuba, Florida, the Keys, Guatemala, down here to Veracruz and Tabasco. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. At least not without leaving in some kind of historical evidence, but we're going to continue on.
2 Malian Chronicles, he particularly referenced the story of an expedition from Mali led by Abu Bakr II in the early 14th century, who allegedly set off westward with a fleet of ships and might have reached the Americas. 3. Pictograms. Van Sertima suggested that some American pictograms and petroglyphs resemble African symbols and could have been left by African travelers. 4. Tales of black gods. He argued that some Native American legends about black gods or dark-skinned strangers could be references to African.
I'll say pictographic depictions are known from a lot of ancient cultures from around the world, but that's something they'll also say alongside pyramids, though, that say that there was some kind of ancient overarching civilization before the Great Flood or some nonsense.
Visitors. However, it should be stressed that most historians and archaeologists consider these arguments to be anecdotal and unconvincing. Of course, this theory is not without its controversies and critics. Some scholars argue that the similarities are coincidental or the result of independent development. They emphasize the lack of direct archaeological evidence of African presence in ancient Mesoamerica during the Olmec era. The debate continues as new findings and technologies like DNA analysis may provide further insights. The theory that the Olmecs may have African roots opens up fascinating discussions about the...
Right, yeah, there were two separate groups, and then they think that having that high melanin content in your skin is unique to people from Africa, when it's not. There's the Polynesians had very dark skins. The Australian Aborigines have dark skin. The Negrito people of Southeast Asia have dark skin. Like the Sentinelese people that are isolated, they have really dark skin. So no, it's not a unique feature to say, hey, there's these lighter skinned people met these darker skinned people, and they called each other the lighter skinned people and the darker skinned people, and they had different facial features. Yeah, there were two. Yeah, India has dark skinned people. Half the population is I can't remember the name of that subpopulation, but. Yeah, go ahead and drop the names of the Tamil and South Indian people. There you go.
Interconnectedness of ancient civilizations and the possible movements of peoples across vast distances. While definitive evidence is still elusive, the similarities between the Olmecs and ancient African cultures invite us to consider the incredible complexity and diversity of human history. What do you think? Could the Olmecs have been influenced by African civilizations, or is their culture purely a product of their own innovation and environment? History is full of mysteries waiting to be solved, and theories like these remind us of the endless possibilities. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating journeys into the past. Until next time, keep wondering, keep exploring. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, so Olmecs, yeah, they were all up in this area here, around Tabasco, from Veracruz to Tabasco. They really like this little coast here. Clear to see why, with when hurricanes come through, they're protected by the Yucatan Peninsula, so you're gonna have a lot easier time than if you were living up in this area here. Now, the Aztec civilization took off right here. The Mayan civilization down here in the Yucatan, right? Both descendants from the Toltec, but there were people down here before the Toltec that were building civilizations in these dense jungles that we're just now starting to understand. But we'll get back to that in a little bit. First, let's see what the research guy has to say.
All right, y'all see the title of the video. So we're going to get right into it with this history of the Olmecs. We're going to give y'all raw truth and nothing else. We got evidence, we got videos, we got newspaper. You're not going to want to miss this. So this first book we're going to be reading from is called Man-Made UFOs, World War II's Secret Legacy.
That sounds like a trustworthy volume, doesn't it? That's the kind of books I go to for history.
The progress of man in Mexico without noting any definite old world influence during this period from 1000 to 650 BC, except a strong Negroid substratum connected with the magician's high priest. You see that? So it says a strong Negroid substratum was in ancient Mexico, connected with the magicians, the high priests of Mexico. And what they're referring to is a certain substance that only black people use, so-called black people use in ancient Mexico. And they said it was there from ancient times, all the way from ancient times. They have traced that there. So they're pulling this information from this book called Ancient Mexico by Frederick Peterson.
Yeah,
so
1959. You got 1959 writers that you're citing here. Oh my goodness. Good morning, Nikki. You missed my baby Bigfoot section for Cryptic Corner this morning. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who the father of my Bigfoot baby that I'm carrying is, and how to best care for it. I learned nothing. Absolutely nothing from watching these videos. I don't know if I need to keep it in a tree. I don't know if I need to put it in a nest. I don't know if I need to carry it on my back, if I need to carry it on my front. I don't even know. After watching, almost a full hour, right, Hive? A full hour of baby Bigfoot videos, and I have no idea how I'm going to take care of this child. Yeah, the magical, that concept. And this idea, anybody but the actual Olmecs have to be. They do cite. There's other videos where they cite India as the origins for the Olmecs, and obviously they cite the Polynesians because they built the Moai heads on Easter Island, Rapa Nui. I don't like calling it Easter Island. That's the colonizer name for it.
His book and get some evidence. Now, this book is called Ancient Mexico, An Introduction to the Pre-Hispanic Cultures by Frederick Peterson. There may have been several migrations at different times in the remote past, each one of a different kind of people. Asia now has a great spread of racial types, but how many inhabited it in prehistoric days is uncertain.
So,
and we do not know.
And understand that this gentleman, the history or the research guy who's doing this video, is citing works from like 1950s eugenicist types, people like Ernest Houghton and Charles Davenport, right? People that thought, for instance, that African babies are more akin to ape babies than they are to white people babies. It's gross and weird.
Know which Asiatic groups contributed to the form of the American Indian. You see that? So they're telling you right off the bat that the people you call Native Americans are Asiatic. They're Asian. All right? It says there were at least two large groups of migrants to America. One group was long-headed and another was broad-headed. For this reason.
Okay. And so you acknowledge, two groups of Asians. Not all Asian people look like the Inuit people or the people in the Far East, like Koreans and stuff. Not all Asian groups looked like that. They're like Sumami was saying in the chat there. India had two different groups of dark-skinned people who have none of those features. There's groups all throughout the Melanesian people all throughout the Pacific are dark-skinned. Indian, and they're of Indian origin too. So what are you even? It's wildly depressing how many people of color regurgitate. I know, because they're African cultures that they descend from. They should be super into those instead of trying to appropriate the cultures of the people in Guatemala, right? People in Mexico, because the kingdoms in Africa are freaking amazing. they're the oldest. Like Ethiopia is the oldest continuous sovereign state or whatever in existence. There's like I was talking about the old ruins in the Amazon. The old ruin. There's ruins in the Congo just like that, even older. So there's a lot to appreciate in Africa. A lot that we can learn about their culture and history, and they did pass on things to other societies, especially Europe, because we just looked at that map. When they're trading with these islands out here, there's this triangle trade route that they're doing here, right? So they're influencing European culture, and of course, this is, culture traveled right across here, traveled up the west coast of Africa, right? All these great cultures that dominated this area down through here where it was tropical. Societies do tend to do well in big river basins like the Congo, like the Amazon, and at the time, the Tigris and Euphrates, although we've kind of aerated that land. You got, the Ganges. Lots of places where civilizations pop up are around tropical rivers near the equator. Anyway.
And other reasons, the American Indians are subdivided into various racial types. There is wide physical variation among Indians with much racial intermixture. Of course, almost all Indians have straight, black, and long hair, brown or black eyes, high cheekbones, and shovel-shaped upper incisors. But individuals vary with long or round faces, sharp or flat noses, short or tall and thin or fat bodies, and so on.
Especially in South America, because the first wave, these darker skinned folks that were the rounder features and stuff came first through the region, moved it. This is the current hypothesis, and settled all of South America and most of North America. But the second wave of Asian immigrants across the Bering Land Bridge were dominant in North America and sort of enveloped the remaining population there. But in South America, they sort of had a stronghold. But there's a lot of admixture between the two. And as we'll find out in a little bit, there was indeed some Polynesian contact between people from Rapa Nui, which is Easter Island, and people from Peru. So there was some contact there about 1,000 years ago. About more than 1,000 years ago. Yeah, about 1,000 years ago.
According to some physical anthropologists, there are 6 different racial types of Indians in Mexico alone. Practically all have Mongolian characteristics, but there are a few Negroid mixtures with the Mongolian, and there is a separate type corresponding.
This is phrenology stuff, right? This is old-timey shape of your skull and all this stuff. Most anthropologists have done away with this sort of designating someone to a different racial group. What we do now is we can divide them by haplogroups, right? We can divide people by their haplogroups, which is the genetic material that says, where and when their ancestors came from, and and then we can take those and run schematics on what likely features those people would have, right? But in the 1950s, it was all about morphology, and they made a lot of gross assumptions.
To the Athapascan Indians, Ernest Houghton saw signs of Australian, Negro, European, and Alpine admixture with the Indian. American Indians and Asiatic peoples probably came from much the same parent stock, but much work remains to be done on this problem. He said, look, we saw some Negroid mixtures, and this is in the ancient times, all right? This is in the ancient times when they go back and
Yeah, you can tell it's in the ancient time because of the language that they're using here, my dude. But there were a whole, like the people that spoke the Arawakan language, right? They were super dark-skinned people, and they would have been considered black to the Europeans and the neighboring tribes. They would have been considered the dark skin. There's still Arawakan people around today that we're gonna look at. So
all the DNA and did all the archaeology and the history on these tribes, they found Negroid presence there. It says studies of the skeletons of the magicians. And this is referring to the magicians that we read about in the first book. It says,
right, this is all like folklore that they built, that colonizers built about ancient civilizations.
Studies of the skeletons of the magicians, supplemented by comparison with the figurines that they made, show that they had a certain adenoidism in the mouth. You see that? Adenoidism is a certain type of tissue that goes back up into your throat. All right, that's what it's talking about. Artificially deformed heads, short legs, low and obese bodies with feminine characteristics, and that they practice dental mutilation. You see that? And this is what I tried to point out last time when I was talking about the Olmecs, because you had many people that came into the comments saying, oh, y'all don't have no DNA proof that those Olmecs were Negroes. They didn't need DNA proof back then because it was based on your culture. It's just like if we do...
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have any DNA proof. They looked at someone and said, hey, you look like you probably belong to this group, and just put you in that group. That's why when a couple pages ago, the guy was like, oh yeah, they have Australian and Asian and yeah, just listing off all the different and we said Alpine, I think they said, admixtures. So
culture, and you see somebody else rapping, you know where that culture came from. That culture came from so-called African Americans. They had a certain type of dental structure, so they knew only black people practice this type of dental mutilation. That's
apparently not if they're finding out that the Olmecs practiced it, dude.
They knew. It says a substratum with Negroid characteristics that intermingled with the magicians led some anthropologists to speculate on Negroid immigrations into Mexico. So they started comparing these magicians with Negroids because they had that adenoid.
I wish you'd stop using that word. I understand it's the word that they used back in this book, and you can definitely do as you please as far as taking it back. But man, it's repeated over and over again in this section. Good grief.
That tissue up in their throat.
Yikes.
And they practice that dental mutilation that only certain black groups of people practice. They knew that already. Just like when the New York Times was printing about it in the 1970s, they knew back then that these people were Negroes. One characteristic of the magicians was a weird obsession with monstrosity.
We're all the same species, so when we're put in when a population is put under similar environmental pressures, like living in a tropical region near the equator and living as a pastoral hunter-gatherer and agricultural society, or coming from that, is going to lend your body to react the same way in the population as it had in the populations around the world. That's why people with darker skin live around the equator. That's why people with broader noses live around the equator, because a broad nose moistens the air, right, before you breathe it in. Does not need to moisten the air. It just take the air straight in. Whereas a long nose moistens it. Where people coming from higher latitude with drier, because when it's colder it's drier. Those are all features that come just from your population being in this area for X amount of time. It doesn't mean that they're all related to each other. We're all the same species. We develop different characteristics in our populations. Oh, Maya, I kind of wish you'd come in here with me with all this nonsense that this guy's spouting.
Individuals.
He starts, I think, is this the one that quotes Graham Hancock? Or, yeah, I guess my girl Sumami is in here too. Why do I have a long fat nose? Well, this is like, I'm talking when groups were isolated from each other during the Pleistocene, not now. Now we're all jumbled and mixed together. But like, why certain characteristics take hold in a human population. There's different features. Yeah, we do have Neanderthal DNA, native atheists. I got stuck with a large nose overall, LMAO, pointy like a witch. I like your nose. I got a big nose too. I got like a wide and long bulbous nose. And it looks ugly when I don't put makeup on it. But
they deliberately portrayed
I'm gonna turn
deformed
my air
or
conditioner up. It's getting
abnormal
hot
persons
in here.
in their figurines, probably in the belief that such monsters had a divine power or were held in divine favor. It seems that such individuals may eventually have been sacrificed. Some of the magician figurines portray individuals with a cleft in the skull, a pear-shaped head, a smooth baby face with rather fat features, a peculiar tiger-like mouth, a large depression in the back of the head, mutilated teeth, and genital or glandular obesity. These
There
were
we go.
all the characteristics that they were pointing out to show that these people were Negroes. These people were...
Dude, those are not features. Oh my god, a smooth baby face, rather fat features, peculiar tiger-like mouth, a large depression in the back of the head, mutilated teeth, and genital or glandular obesity. Now, and you're describing that as, that's not, yikes. No, that doesn't describe black people. Please stop. Oh my gosh. What did I stumble into? I'm gonna go to the next video. This guy's freaking me out. I can't listen to any more of this. But we'll go on to here. These are obviously the Moorish people who think that, you know, the Israelites were black too. They're like black Hebrew Israelite. What do they call it? The Moorish sovereign citizens or whatever.
And so he was the one that led the invasion of the black nation that was there, that we now call Aztec. But he was writing what he saw. These were not really letters. They were narratives of what he saw and what was going on. And
right. That's the weird thing, Sumami. This guy is citing, basically, here, before we move on to this, let me just show you the type of... So this guy's citing the works from Houghton, Ernest Houghton. And he had some bad takes about race, right? He worked with eugenicist Charles Davenport, who, was very influential in the American eugenics movement. So, the same people who were making these claims about the Olmecs and the Aztecs and Native Americans in general are the same people who basically were saying that that black people were a different species. Let's see here, though. Okay.
They were doing as well. But he was writing about the mosque that he saw. He was writing about the barbershops that he saw, how fine these barbers were. And he was talking about the Moorish dress that they wore. The clothing was Moorish, and the buildings were Moorish in architecture. And when he crossed on the top of the mountain to invade the land, to come down to this capital of the Aztecs, he was at the top of the mountain. He looked down and he made this strange remark. He says, "And there lies far-flung Venus."
Venus?
That doesn't mean very much to many people, but it meant a lot to me. I was familiar with Venus over on that side of the ocean and that city sitting on that water, and I knew what he was saying. Here was a city built on canals with ships all around it.
Right, which was the Aztec city. I cannot pronounce the name of it for the life of me, like Tequeltotl or something like that. It's where the axolotls come from, and the only place where they're still found in the wild. we've looked at it before, but this guy's going to try to use that to make some kind of Atlantis connection because it's built on the water.
City there with the Moorish architecture built on the design of a Venus. And later I understood that's exactly what it was. He started describing the city. Here's this marvelous African city sitting on a man-made island in a man-made sea where Mexico City stands right now.
Yeah,
and
that's
you've
true.
got this black man. If you've ever seen this piece of art called the Moorish Chief, I'm going to tell you right now, they said they don't know who that man is modeled after, but when you understand the descriptions of Montezuma, this African that they call Montezuma,
Montezuma was not African.
you will see that Moorish Chief and you will be looking
We got
exactly
Seinfeld
at
jokes in the
Montezuma.
side
He is
chat.
getting every description that they gave, and then he has this little secret thing about it. When you look on his head, you see he's got this white cowl on his head, and underneath that white cowl is a little small red cap. Now, they'll try to say that's about the assassins or the assassins. No, you got to understand, Mexico is Lower Egypt. That's where Memphis was, and when you're the king of Memphis, your crown is red. And I'm thinking they're trying to show him secretly that this is Montezuma. They said Montezuma is this medium-built man, and they talked about the beard.
Somebody keeping up with this?
That's shaped, and they're talking about he's black, and then others say very dark complected. And I'm looking at the Moorish Chief.
Right, there were a lot of native civilizations well before Islam came into play in Africa, right? Especially West Africa. West Africa was a hotbed of culture and different societies and ways of life, and I think there's a lot more genetic diversity among the populations there than anywhere else in the world.
I'm not saying anything that does not agree with the descriptions that they give of Montezuma. And I'm saying, well, now we got a problem. Aztecs are Indians. That's what I was told. But now I've got Martha Malaku's education under my belt, and in the book of Ivan van Sertima, he talks about those two expeditions, those two voyages of ships that came out of Senegambia. He's talking about those 500 ships and those 2,000 ships that went across in 1306 and again in 1311 looking for the first group of ships, or about those years. Now, we have those ships coming across the Atlantic from West Africa, and then they say there is no record of what happened to them, except now I'm in the Americas. I'm at Mexico. I'm looking in the records that the prior...
But again, what happened to those ships and all that? They're sailing from Gambia, right? It's more likely that they would go to Cabo Verde, maybe, right? That's right along the way. They could go up to the Canaries or all the way up to the Azores. But to get to Mexico, they would need to go all the way through the Antilles, right? Either the big ones or the little ones, one way or the other. Either go through the top or go through the bottom, one way or the other. Right? Let's say, since they're coming from this region, we're going to go straight across, hypothetically, right? Sure, they could go, but with all of this land, it's kind of wild to think that they would come all the way through here, right? All the way up here, to Veracruz and Tabasco. Or even further up to Mexico, right? When there's all of South America, much closer, in the Antilles, in Florida, in Cuba, in Nicaragua, in the Yucatan, and Honduras, all of this land before you have to go weaving your way all the way around to get to Tabasco and Veracruz. So, I don't think so. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, this is that channel talking about the Aztecs being Moorish and all sorts of nonsense like that. But yeah, if you actually look into it, though, the people that live in the area still have these features, right? They still carry these features today. Very much so. And they still have the dark skin, right? This is actually a person of the Garifuna, which is those Arawak language folks in the Caribbean. So yeah, debunking the Black Indian myth from they came before Columbus to hidden colors. In They Came Before Columbus, Ivan van Sertima put forward the argument that African people were in the Americas long before Columbus was there. There are some problems with this theory. In the first place, there are no Egyptian historical records which suggest that Egyptians ever sailed to the Americas or ever attempted such a journey. And They Came Before Columbus, Van Sertima argues that Egyptian journey to the Americas happened during the rule of the 25th dynasty, which was the Kushite dynasty that ruled Egypt. Van Sertima never explained why he selected this particular dynasty, but his reasoning for doing so is important because he later altered the date to African presence in early America to 948 or circa 1000 BC. Van Sertima was forced to alter his thesis in light of new evidence which demonstrated that the Olmec civilization was older than originally believed, which led me to the next issue. Because the Olmec civilization is one that has been largely shrouded in mystery, there have been a number of theories about the historical roots of the Olmec. Van Sertima was among those who argued that the Olmec had African origins, whereas others, like Mike Zhu, have argued that the Olmec civilization has Asian roots, not only because of the apparent Asian features of some Olmec sculptures, but Zhu also attempted to draw connections between Olmec script and Chinese characters. Below are pictures of Olmec sculptures. Here's the ones that they claim have Chinese features. So, as you can see, and then the round bodies and everything that they were talking about in that previous video that we watched. There have been a number of diffusion theories regarding the Olmec. Van Sertima's case in They Came Before Columbus is best known, certainly not the only one. The mysterious origins of the Olmec civilization has invited a lot of speculation, and in Van Sertima's case, he speculated the Egyptians sailed to the Americas and influenced the Olmec civilization. But there simply is no historical evidence to demonstrate this, which is why Van Sertima was forced to alter his thesis in some respects. Van Sertima also argued it was Columbus himself who suggested that Africans were in America before he was. Van Sertima makes this claim at the very beginning of the video below. Sure, let's give you a listen. How long is this?
This evening is based on my book, They Came Before Columbus, African Presence in Ancient America. A great deal of research has been done. One has become aware of far more things that have emerged from excavations that help to confirm with almost an absoluteness what we have advanced in the past, that there were Africans in America before Columbus.
All right, we're not going to watch this guy's whole lecture, but that's it right there. That's the dude. Van Sertima repeated his claim again when he testified in front of the House of Representatives. Yeah, there are African people in the Caribbean now because of the slave trade, and because they managed to a few nations anyway managed to liberate themselves as a people and liberate the whole island. It was a fantastic achievement of just humans under the rising up under the most brutal conditions. If you don't know about like the history of Haiti and Cuba and Jamaica, all these big plantation islands, look it up. It's freaking fascinating. These when it comes to cruelty towards their slaves, I don't know what could surpass that. Is maybe the antebellum South was comparable, but the Caribbean plantations were brutal. So yeah, the people they had enough and they rose up, and yeah, pretty cool stuff. Not cool stuff that they were slaves, but cool stuff that they were able to rise up and actually conquer the whole island and take it back. Now, I'm not the first to suggest that there were Africans in America before Columbus. Columbus was the first to suggest it. Columbus actually said in the journal of his second voyage when he was in Haiti, then known as Hispaniola, Native Americans came to him and told him that black people had come in large boats from the south and the southeast trading in gold-tipped metal spears. Probably Columbus did not believe this, and the fact is, and that fact in itself would not be enough, because the so-called black people could be any people. It could be dark bronze people from South America. However, Columbus actually sent back on a mailboat to Spain samples of these gold-tipped metal spears. When the metallurgist in Spain assessed these spears, they found they were identical, not similar, but identical to, in their ratio of gold, silver, and copper alloys as spears then being forged in African Guinea. Okay, so I don't trust a 14th century metallurgist to tell me where gold came from. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I want to make a point of clarification here. Columbus never claimed that he saw black people in the Americas. Columbus wrote, their hair is short and coarse, almost like the hair of a horse's tail. They wear the hair brought down to the eyebrows, except a few locks behind, which they wear long and never cut. They paint themselves black, and they are the color of Canarians, neither black nor white. Some people from the Canary Islands, okay. Some paint themselves white, others red, and others of what color they find. Some paint their faces, others their whole body. Some only around their eyes, others only on the nose. The description that Columbus gives certainly is not a description of black people in the Caribbean. In fact, Columbus writes that they were not black. Sertima claims to be referencing Columbus, but he's actually referencing Bartolomé de las Casas, writing de las Casas gave this description in his account of Columbus's voyage. Wednesday, July 4th, he ordered sail made from the island, in which he says that since he arrived there, he never saw the sun or the stars, but that the heavens were covered with such a thick mist that it seemed they could cut it with a knife, and the heat was so very intense that they were tormented. And he ordered the course laid to the way of the southwest, which is the route leading from these islands to the south, in the name, he says, of the Holy and Indivisible Trinity, because then he would be on a parallel with the island of Sierra of Lao, a cape of Sancta Ana in Guinea, which is below the equinoctial line. I guess that's the equatorial line. I'm not sure. where he says that below that line of the world are found more gold and things of value, and that after he would navigate the Lord pleasing to the west, and from there would go to his Hispaniola, in which route he would prove the theory of the King John aforesaid, and that he thought to investigate in the report of the Indians of this Hispaniola, who said that there had come to Hispaniola from the south and east a black people who have the tops of their spears made of metal, which they call garden, of which he had sent samples to the sovereign to have them assay, when they found that 32 parts of the 32 parts, 18 were of gold, 6 of silver, and 8 of copper. Neither Columbus nor de las Casas wrote anything about African spears. This is an inference that Van Sertima makes, but he presents his inference as a fact. Nowhere does de las Casas suggest that the spears he is referring to were identical to or even similar to the spears in West Africa. Moreover, how would he have known? Did the Spanish also assay the spears of West Africa to know what ratio of gold, silver, and copper alloy were found in the African spears? Van Sertima does not say, but he jumps to that conclusion that the spears that they sent to Spain were African spears without providing a basis for why he believes that's so. The second problem is the second problem with the manner in which Van Sertima uses this piece of information is the assumption that black people whom de las Casas were referring to were African. Columbus was quoted before as noting that the natives sometimes painted themselves black. So for all we know, the black people who were referred to were people who were painted black as opposed to black-skinned people. Even Van Sertima himself admits that the people who were trading these spears could be dark bronze people from South America as opposed to Africans. Van Sertima's scholarship was flawed in many respects, but he made an attempt to challenge the racist scholarship of his time. Unfortunately, the scholarship that he has inspired has tended to be worse quality than Van Sertima's was. For example, whereas Van Sertima argued that African influenced the civilization of the Americas, Clyde Ahmad Winters goes further by suggesting that Africans founded the Olmecs of all the majority of American civilizations, which is a claim that Van Sertima never made. It's weird that everyone is so weird about historical cultural supremacy, but in the most confused way. Like, people won't learn about the equally interesting history of their own culture, but also, let's see. Okay, Winters writes, the first civilization to appear in America, called the Olmec culture, was founded by Africans. The original Maya were probably Africans. The Aztec, Zapotec, Toltec, and Maya usually occupied urban centers built by Africans or Afro-Indians. Hidden color also makes the argument that Africans were in the Americas before Columbus. In the documentary, Umar Johnson claimed that Africans were going back and forth, engaging in cultural and economic trade before Columbus, and how Europe underdeveloped Africa. Walter Rodney explains that if any African canoe can reach the Americas, as is sometimes maintained, they did not establish a two-way link. If these two-way links were established, Umar failed to cite specific examples because there are no examples. This two-way trade never happened. Phil Valentine is even more confused. In the documentary, he says that Mansa Musa is the same person as Montezuma. This statement is horribly misinformed. Mansa Musa never sailed to the Americas. Mansa Musa took the throne after the previous ruler, Abu Bakr II went on an expedition to sail the Atlantic Ocean. He never returned, though some, including Van Sertima, argued that he arrived in the Americas. Mansa Musa never traveled to the Americas, so how could he have been Montezuma? The two likely were not even alive at the same period of time. They say Montezuma here. I thought that was Moctezuma, M-O-C-T. But I'll read it like it's written here for now for this person's analysis. I'm not completely dismissive of the idea that Abu Bakr could have in fact successfully arrived in the Americas. Van Sertima cites a number of other European explorers who he claimed reported seeing black people in the Americas as well. And I'm not suggesting that no African people were in the Americas before Columbus. I am merely pointing out that the scholarship around the topic tends to be very flawed and misleading. One of the most baffling claims to me is the idea that the slave trade happened in reverse and the Native Americans were shipped to Africa, not the other way around. There's not a shred of evidence to prove this. Moreover, the slave narrative all makes it very clear that the enslaved population of the Americas came from Africa. So much so that in Cuba, some enslaved persons committed suicide in hope that their spirits would return to Africa. Despite this, and some individuals would argue, a mass colony of Africans were not shipped to Africa, or not shipped from Africa to America. The truth is, the black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. They were then shipped from Spain to Africa as a commodity for African resources. These black Indians, now mistaken for African Americans, were shipped back to America and classified as African slaves. This part of our history is what the school system failed to mention in history programs. That's a lot of shuffling, huge populations of people around. Holy moly. What would the point of shipping in black Indians to Europe, then to Africa, and then back to the Americas again be? Aside from the lack of evidence for this, such a claim simply does not even make sense. I noted before that Van Sertima claims were flawed in some respects, but his arguments were still logical in certain respects, and he did attempt to provide documentation for at least some of his claims. Even if at the time the documentation he presented was misleading, but the claims presented in hidden colors and the claims presented by others who promote the notion of black aboriginals are so misinformed that in many cases they just seem nonsensical. Yeah, and this was written by Dwayne Wong Omoweli, Pan-African activist, historian, and author. Okay, so the Olmecs were native people. I mean, that's it. They're just Native American people. A different group, maybe with some different distinct features, but they were not travelers from Africa in the 11th century or whatever. No, it's not a thing that happened. All right, let me pare things down here and see if we have any other questions or anything I need to address there before we close out this segment. Okay. All right. So, yeah, that was a little bit of sci-fails for you. Kind of a touchy subject, but I thought, I shouldn't just avoid things because they get touchy when there's problems here with the way it's being presented. All right. So, please remember to be kind. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it. Asteroids are fake! Asteroids are gay! Diamond Eagles 33, I'm moving on to primate! Pandas are fake! They're furries and suits! From the fake panda tail, the tails! To the fake panda suits! More scam, more scam! More scam! More scam, more scam! More scam! More scam, more scam, more scam! No sinister swamp set in the sun. My scam, my scam, my scam, my scam. 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 My scam, my scam. My scam, my scam, my scam, my scam, my scam, my scam, my scam. My scam, my scam. My scam, my scam, my scam, my scam. My scam, my scam, my scam. Asteroids are fake. Asteroids are gay. Asteroids are fake. Asteroids are gay. My scam, my scam, my scam.